The most important invention in human history is fire. It's impossible to understand human evolution without knowing when it happened. We're going to look at very strong evidence that it happened over 4 million years ago. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, this changes everything. The oldest known use of fire is about 1.6 million years ago. That's Homo Erectus. The problem is, evidence of fire disappears as you go back millions of years. And one thing's for sure, you won't find it if you don't look for it. And we will demonstrate for a fact that they ain't looking. The key to going back further in time is the fact that humans go extinct in one generation without cooked food. Our brain takes 25% of our energy, and we have small teeth and a small gut that can only digest cooked food. Okay, how far back have we had that small gut, small teeth, and energy-consuming brain? Over 4 million years. Whales have a brain 5 times the size of ours, but we have more neurons. That energy-consuming gene may be close to 5 million years old. Okay, so if it requires cooked food to have that big brain, and it requires the big brain to cook food, how does that work? I hate to spoil the punchline, but almost all of our famous fossil ancestors, all of them, were living next to a constant source of fire. They didn't have to rub 2 sticks together. And of course, there are other benefits of fire, such as driving all predators off their kills and sleeping safely at night. A stone point doesn't make you king of the world, but fire does. Evidence of actual fire is hard to find after millions of years. Wood and charcoal is long gone. One thing's for sure, you won't find it if you don't look. The oldest certain fire is at Kubifora in Kenya 1.6 million years ago. It's fire hearths that were heated to 500 degrees centigrade. It's only 100 degrees centigrade for a forest fire. And the hearths are surrounded by burned bones and spalled cracked rocks from the extreme heat. So they're fire. The perfect example that they aren't looking for fire is Rising Star Cave and Homo Erectus. Seems as it was always obvious that they had fire to navigate those extremely difficult passages. If they didn't need fire, they weren't from Earth. After 7 years and thousands of trips to the cave by dozens of anthropologists, Lee Berger lost 50 pounds so he could fit, and sitting there where they all ate lunch for 7 years, looked up at the ceiling and noticed there was soot from fires. 7 years and no one noticed. And when they looked down at the ground, there was charcoal from the fires they'd been walking on. And as expected, there was a fire at the entrance to all the difficult passages. Hobbits could make fire, and they were the same size as Australopithecus and had a slightly smaller brain. Is anyone looking for the incredibly faint traces of fire that might still exist with Australopithecus? Not likely. A link by Professor Jack Harris discussing it on site and a paper at the bottom. Smart folks are a dime a dozen, but those that can spot what's important are rare. Richard Wrangham noticed that existing hunter-gatherers go extinct in one generation without cooked food. This is the most important fact in all human evolution. Wrangham has some amazing accomplishments in anthropology and elsewhere, but if he's right, this alone makes him the greatest anthropologist in all human history. We all stand on the backs of giants. Modern technological people who choose to eat raw food, half the women become infertile. That's with unlimited amounts of finely ground, ultra-high quality food, oil, nuts, etc. An actual hunter-gatherer, it would be 100% infertile. Probably why even the most primitive, uncontacted tribe, anywhere on Earth, now or in history, could make fire and they cooked their food. Eating raw meat doesn't change that. You still go extinct. All this stuff about eating meat is responsible for the big brain is nonsense. They obviously never conducted an experiment. Cooked vegetables are far better for big brains than raw meat. Tell a hunter-gatherer not to cook their meat and they will look at you like you have 3 heads. It's that large brain and small gut. Our brain takes about 25% of our energy, and our small gut and teeth only digest about 50% of uncooked food. A cooked banana has twice the calories for us than a raw banana. If you want to lose weight, don't cook your bananas. And it gets worse. The uncooked banana takes extra energy to digest. A chimp with its big gut would digest almost all of the uncooked banana. The huge benefit of cooked food works for all animals. They all get fat and have sleek coats. The difference is we can't survive at all without it. Not to mention chimps spend over 12 hours a day chewing. Generally speaking, if given the choice, they choose cooked food. Australopithecus would have preferred it too. Some lectures by the great Richard Wrangham below. Okay, so how long has this big brain, small gut and teeth thing been going on? That's how long we've had fire. Homo erectus brain, teeth, and gut size is well within the modern range. But that means Homo erectus didn't invent fire. It would be extinct in a generation without it. Next on the list is Australopithecus. Surely that's a small brain and big gut. We've all seen pictures of the big gut. But turns out ribs don't survive for whatever reason, and that large gut was a guess all along, based on expecting it to be large, like chimps. But in the last 30 years, we've gotten enough ribs and measured their curvature that we now know Australopithecus had a waist just as thin as ours and Homo erectus, and for a size, a very large brain. In this case, it's scaled up to our size, granted a female existing human and a stocky male Australopithecus. Anyone that wants to debate that waist size needs to take it up with Professor Carol Ward. A nice lecture linked below. But better eat your Wheaties. Trust me, she's the boss. You'll see. So wait a minute. Australopithecus would go extinct without cooked food too? Australopithecus? And worse yet, that means they didn't invent it, since they couldn't survive without it. So who invented it? The hero of our story, Artie. After all, where on earth would they get the meat? They were scavenging on kill sites? How does that make sense? If you want to meet the largest, fastest predators in the jungle, go to a kill site. A small, slow ape, not very good at climbing, shows up, they would be dinner. Even if they have a pointed wooden spear. But if they had fire, they could just walk right in and help themselves, as long as the fire didn't go out. The entire time of Australopithecus, there was also a version often called Paranthropus, with huge teeth and chewing muscles and a large gut. What's that about? It's an Australopithecus that fills the niche of being able to survive without cooked food. The truth of the matter is, there is no break between Australopithecus and Homo erectus, and the zoo of in-between steps. It's a smooth continuum. Look at Dmanisi at 1.8 million years. Same place, and all within a few centuries, and it's a wide variety. Some like Homo erectus, some like Homo habilis, or even Australopithecus in some ways. The big change is between Ardipithecus and Australopithecus. That's when we became human. A lecture by the formidable Professor Carol Ward below. Okay, so if Artie had a brain about the size of a chimp, how come chimps didn't use fire too? Some animals, like sperm whales, have brains much larger than ours, but we have more neurons than any of them. There are two mutations that cause that. The first one is 5 million years ago, the second can't be dated. All we know is that it happened after 5 million years ago. If you have twice as many neurons in a same-sized brain, that's enough to hold a burning branch. The larger brain, with all its drawbacks, birth canal, etc., would be a last resort. And unlike most other genes that improve brain function, like FOXP2, there's a huge energy cost. Twice as many neurons, twice as much energy to feed them. Some speculate that second step in the mutation happened right before Homo erectus. But we have needed that cooked food with our small gut and teeth for over 4 million years. Artie had the mutation, and Lucy was the result. A lecture by Professor Wyan Hunter is below. Okay, it's impossible to have that large brain and small gut teeth without cooked food. And you can't make fire and cook food without the large brain. Have you ever tried to make fire by rubbing two sticks together? No chimp is going to discover that trick. Here's the punchline. The vast majority of those famous fossils of our ancestors were right next to a constant source of fire. The Great Rift Valley was full of lava. Lucy, Artie, Latola footprints, Turkana boy, etc., in some cases for hundreds of thousands of years. All they had to do for fire is put a stick in the nearest lava for a couple minutes. Hello? They're virtually almost always found right on the edge of the lava field, and I mean right dead next to it. Granted, that may be because all of Africa has the same fossils, and the Great Rift spreading apart and eroding made finding the fossils easy. But regardless, they were living right next to a constant source of fire for hundreds of thousands of years. The first biped ape that mastered the trick because of a neuron mutation or whatever owned the world. All her children, with all those neurons that learned the trick easily, prospered and multiplied. And after hundreds of thousands of years of using fire, of becoming dependent on it to survive, and getting more and more neurons and larger brains, someone figured out how to make it. The most likely candidate is that there is flint mixed with iron pyrite naturally. Making a stone point with it, you would notice the sparks. Maybe Lucy had some extra neurons and a somewhat larger brain and was fascinated by the fire-like sparks and experimented. Maybe a lucky spark started some tinder. Who knows? A tough trick to learn, but her descendants conquered the entire planet. That, ladies and gentlemen, is selected for. A lecture by the formidable Professor Michael Medler is below. In summary, we know evidence of fire millions of years ago is almost impossible to find, even with a lot of effort, and they aren't looking. And we know from nutrition that fire goes back as far as our small gut, small teeth, and energy-intensive brain, and that's over 4 million years ago. And that the energy cost isn't just the size of the brain, it's how our brain packs in huge numbers of neurons, and that may go back up to 5 million years. And we know they didn't have to invent making fire to get the whole thing started. By an amazing coincidence, it seems almost all of them were living right next to a constant source of fire for hundreds of thousands of years. Didn't need to rub two sticks together, just put the end of the stick in the lava for a minute. How hard is that? And in the bigger picture than just nutrition, as important as it is, fire has other uses. For starters, you can drive other predators off their kills. After all, how on earth did a small, slow, little biped ape go scavenge from kill sites? All the predators at kill sites are very large or very fast. If not, they are part of the kill. Period. It's a very different story of human origins, and it makes a lot more sense. Without fire, Australopithecus was everyone's launch. With it, she dominated all kills, slept safe at night, and had a powerful brain, and was destined to conquer the world. It all makes sense. Okay, I'm going to end this video by telling a little story. This isn't how it happened, it's like how it happened. An electron isn't a particle or wave, it's like a particle or wave. The kingdom isn't a mustard seed, it's like a mustard seed. Artie was always different. Always apart, doing strange things that the family didn't understand. Lately, she'd even taken to cooking her food on the Red Death. Well, at least she quit complaining about not having enough food all the time, so no one said anything. One day, she was cooking her food, and the evil ones attacked with their clubs and their spears, killing the family. Now, Artie, she could have run away. She was small. She couldn't fight. She could have picked up a stick and charged them, died nobly. But Artie's brain was packed with brain cells, and she was the smartest animal that ever walked, flew, or swam on planet Earth. And she picked up a burning stick, and she charged the evil ones, and they screamed and ran away. And the family gathered around her and praised her actions. Some said they will call her the wise one. Some said the great warrior. Some were even thinking about maybe cooking their food themselves. And Artie, she went and relit her stick.